Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here. So today's presentation, I'm going to run through a lot of data and evidence and how MLA comes up with the strategies it does around marketing and so forth. We've had quite a bit of change in MLA in the last 2 years, and one of the teams we have changed dramatically has been our marketing team, moving it from an advertising based organisation to a really focused marketing team with a lot of fast-moving consumable goods people in the team. And I think when we look back on the team that's probably in our MLA's marketing in years to come, you'll find that you've got some of the finest marketers in Australia within that team and leading the team, particularly with Lisa Sharp. So today, Today, out of this presentation, I'll start where I'm going to finish, is I want to demonstrate that we're using that information, data and evidence and insights, consumer insights to how we form those strategies, which will give you as a society and as breeders of Angus cattle an understanding of what MLA can now do for you and your brands globally and domestically. But the first part is understanding successful marketing starts with the consumer. Understanding what they eat, where they eat, how they eat, what are they eating less of, how they cook and where they buy. So in MLA we've just run through a very simple formula. And in that formula it's around information and data, the insights, the strategy and the programs, the initiatives, the evaluations. And I'm going to run you through today three of those programs quite quickly. That'll be our domestic beef marketing campaign and then the USA campaigns and the Korean campaigns. And at the end of it, if I forget to tell you why MLA has become huge supporters of PETA and why my mother ate chicken when she was pregnant, I'll let you know it through the questions and answers. If I don't do that, then please ask me why. So I've covered that slide. So we have some from our consumer testing and sensory testing domestically here in Australia. US producers of red meat are enormously trusted by consumers. 93% of consumers trust you around food safety and the quality of the product that you're delivering. Around those aspects that it's a delicious meal, it's around bringing people together for celebrations, our lifestyle, nutrition, real food and people, and our nation's prosperity is very much linked to what you do as rural producers. But the one place that we have focused on recently, which you would hopefully recognise, has been around nutrition. But with all that has been the negatives around animal welfare, the impact on the environment and health concerns. And consumers globally, not just in Australia, have been getting all these messages. And our task is to understand how we combat those messages. Particularly, that's led to results like this. The less expensive processed proteins and a desire for variety have led to long-term decline in red meat consumption. A trend we've seen globally, particularly through Western economies. But this, again, is a global challenge. It's not just an Australian challenge. And to put that into perspective, there's what happens around the world. And this is the 2015 per capita consumption of red meat is in the green. Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, USA and Australia. And then you'll see, obviously, China over the other end. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on China today. I think China's been done to death. But you'll see where China has the ability to grow in all sectors on a per capita basis compared to these nations. My point there is Australia is the largest consumer on a per capita basis of lamb, the 5th largest for beef. We combine those two and we eat more red meat protein than Brazil and the USA on a per capita basis. But there's the challenge. Against the long-term decline and continuing increases in global demand for red meat, consumers are being asked to pay more for the Australian meat. So we've had a 30 to 40% increase at retail price. Our consumers' insight tell us that the key drivers to consumers' behaviour around price is number 1, health is number 2, and convenience is number 3. So we had to segment our marketplace. So we segment the marketplace, the loyalists in the room, who if we spent any money on the loyalists over here, the heavy users, we could spend $100 million on promoting red meat to them and we get zero return. Because those people are already eating a lot of red meat and we don't need to do a lot to them. I generally pick on someone in the crowd at this point in time and call them a heavy user, but I'll behave myself today. The people in between, the medium users, That's our target market, because at the other end we have our light users that are fussy, they like a lot of variety in their meals. But the most important people have been our big baskets, the consumers that have to go out every week and buy big baskets at Woolworths, of course, important, and they're important to our supermarkets and our butchers. But we have to give them a compelling reason as to why they should be buying more red meat. And in the process, we're educating the next generation. Oops, I've done that. The next generation of meat eaters, the young children in the family, mothers with kids. So here's the strategy. We're now up to that. We've gone through the data and the evidence. I know I do get criticised by staff inside MLA for using that term data and evidence. They reckon when they give me a cup of coffee, I go, where's the evidence it's actually coffee? But I'm big on this, that the strategy in this program, after identifying our target market, has been to reduce barriers to consumption by giving consumers permission to eat more red meat. The target market, and how is to promote key product benefits around protein, iron and zinc. And how I keep my job is we come up with these programs, and hopefully you've seen the Better on Beef campaigns. There's been quite a few retail shops have used the stickers, and we've promoted it throughout rural Australia. And the part that keeps me in a job is the last part, which is evaluation of these programs. But before we get to the valuation, I need to turn the page and keep up, is what we're actually doing. So we're not just using the traditional TV ad. As a marketing organisation, it's nutritionists, it's a medical fraternity to get this message through. A lot of the content is on social media these days, and targeted radio. So a lot of that targeted radio is right between 4 and 6 p.m. at night, understanding that people are going home, or thinking about what they're going to do that night. That's pretty common marketing, but we're providing the solutions. And what have been the results. So a 20% decline amongst the target audience, which is mums. And those mums, and the comments are that with a 20% decline, I'm limiting red meat consumption due to health concerns. We're now tracking that we're not seeing a limit or a decline in people consuming red meat. So that's against a 30 to 40% price increase. A World Health Organization report that if we're the 4th or 5th largest eaters of red meat in the world, we'd all be, it's amazing we're all here because we're supposed to be dead from colon cancer, according to the report. But having said that, we've increased the amount of serves of red meat per week. 54% of the target audience are more likely to eat beef. Consumption increased only slightly by 0.17. But you take that across the whole category, and that's millions and millions of dollars worth of sales. And again, through this whole campaign on Facebook and Twitter, we've used people that have a following. Some have been chefs, some have been ex-rugby players, or I think the Honey Badger's still playing rugby. But he generated just under 2 million hits on the videos that he did around beef. And as an aside, I mean, the lamb one went very well. It got close to 50 million hits. But having said that, that's been the absolute strategy in our domestic market. And what I just ran you through was the evaluation part. And that's obviously what we take back to the board. The evaluation of these programs. How was the dollar spent and what were the returns? And we're up to stage 2 of your Better on Beef campaigns. So now in our global markets, the same formula. There's our global markets, and the one in 2015, just as we came off the largest ever sell-off of our beef herd in our production history. You can see that what the USA was taking, and that's been well documented around, if I find it there, over there, North America's been taking in terms of consumption. But they're our main markets. The USA, Japan, Korea, China, we're under enormous pressure from Brazil because of currency. And they've taken our position as a commodity supplier, but the strategy in China has been that we are the only country in the world with chilled access to China. So it's been high grade premium product into China. That has positioned us with the high end in retail and the high end food services companies. but we've had numerous brands across our global marketplace. So we've had a fragmented brand. We've had a different brand for Australian beef in every single marketplace that we've been in, particularly our majors. And we've done that as major consumers are becoming more globalised. Food's becoming a real trend in the world, and food trends, whether it be Koreans on food trends are on trend, or Japanese cooking is on trend. But tourists floating around the world, one of the main reasons they'll go to a country now, the third main reason they go to a country, is to experience food trends. And as I said, we've got ever-increasing competition from our competitors. So MLA needed to develop a common added value reputation for Australian beef and lamb that works across all our export markets. And what we've done is play to our strengths. We've played to that we're the ideal home, peace of mind, pure enjoyment, promote Australia's qualities and credentials, which include MSA. They don't necessarily include the word green, clean and green, which is one of my real issues. But having said that, I can play the video at the end, but to save time, this is the brand that we've launched across the world. It's the brand that is now in China to a limited degree, but it's very, very heavily used throughout Korea and Japan. But we've retained the characteristics that are relevant to the Japanese and Korean consumers to ensure that there's been no loss of all the branding that's taken place. But clean, safe has been retained, which is important in our Asian markets. But we need to keep developing this brand to ensure that we continue to create a price premium in our global markets. Australia, with your investment of levy payers across your global markets, you've been in China for over 20 years, you've been in Japan and Korea for nearly 30 years, you've created a position for your product that it is not a commodity. And that position is holding you well and in great stead. You outsell the USA 2-1 in Japan, 2-1 in Korea. And our strategy in China is to make sure that we brand our product at the high end. Brazil's going to compete on the commodity end. We have not gone in at the commodity end because it's very hard to go from commodity supply to a high-end value-added branded product and then come back or go up the value chain. There's more pictures around the True Aussie. Translation of the photo is True Aussie. Nice to meet you. Don't worry, they do get better. But that's what's been happening in the Korean market. Partnership with Korean retailers are critical to brand presentation. Costco's been an enormous supporter. Painted whole walls with True Aussie. Promoted product under True Aussie. This makes it easier for anyone that wants to launch a brand. If they can get in with the supermarket and through the front door, your product goes in under the True Aussie logo. Something that, as I've said, has been quite successful in the rollout in the last 2 to 3 years. So successful that some parts of agriculture want to use it as the whole brand for Australian agriculture, tourism, education and medical services around the world. We're not quite there yet. Now the US market, same principles. And hopefully, as I said, one of the growing markets we've had is the US market. So now go to what are the insights about the US market? And these sort of words that hopefully you've seen come out of the US market and identified with, that there's enormous competition in the US market and retailers are fighting for, and fast food chains have been fighting around how they position their product to gain a competitive advantage in the US. And these are the trends that are happening. 19% increase in grass-fed burgers across the US menus. 114% increase in grass-fed within Mexican formats. And 50% increase in grass-fed steak strips across the USA menus since 2012. They're the consumer insights. We have been sending grass-fed product to Texas in the USA. And it's building trade awareness. So MLAs, in-market global managers, building trade awareness, but becoming like key account managers in these global markets, not just doing the generic marketing of beef through these markets. Education and promotion. We do a lot of how in our markets globally. But when I talk about, and I will talk about, one thing I want you to keep in mind is we'll talk about brands. But brands aren't just what goes on top of your meat as well. Brands are the people like Chipotle and the people that are selling your product globally. And the reputation of their brand is paramount to their success. So there's the results of the US. We've had an enormous spike in grass-fed product going to the US. So those three examples are just examples of where MLA's transformed its marketing team. But added to that is this type of portfolio. So MLA, in terms of its decision-making process, has a task force around global marketing, a task force around domestic marketing. It engages the whole supply chain. MLA, as I'm sure you all know, is the doer of the industry. We do the marketing, we do the R&D, but we consult heavily around the direction that industry wants to take their levy spend. So we have task force and always have around where the money goes and how the budgets are divided up. But we supply this type of information. There is the whole beef portfolio divided up into into a matrix of whether it's maintain, it's grow, it's managed strategically or developed. So there's objectives and strategies within all these categories. Not every country's up there, and some countries are up there as regions. But out of that, you can see that North America, for obvious reasons, is a grow market. MENA is still a grow market. China is between develop and grow, and Australia is an absolute maintain for reasons that I developed. But the most important part about this is that we assess the economies of the country that we're exporting to, their ability to pay for high valued product on their own value within market, the product mix, the market risks. Market risks include China. Not a lot of sophistication around the supply chains yet. Growth projection, but the most important part is, can we have an impact in these markets with your levy spend? Is it a market that we should be focusing on? Now, we can do this for a lot of things, but I put this slide up to demonstrate that this is the grain-fed market. And you can see the USA, for all intensive purposes, has moved back into a maintain, down into a managed strategically, because the growth opportunity, as I said before, was certainly around grass-fed product. So just quickly, in summary, understanding the markets and consumers is critical in developing effective strategies. So what I'm saying there is, don't go out and build your own brand. Come to MLA as levy payers. You can see the sort of data and evidence and consumer insights that we've got prior to going to launch a brand. You then may go to branding experts to do a lot more work, but the raw data is now used extensively within your own industry. But the combination of all these activities help to the achievement of price premiums and enhance farm gate returns. I now just want to quickly walk through MSA and the MSA 5-year strategic plan. So MLA has just gone through its review for the last 5 years, and this is the MSA review. Now, just so you all know, the financial review was done by the Centre of International Economics, and then overlaid on top of that was a review of up to 200 people. Well, there were exactly 200 people engaged from producers right through to retailers in the evaluation that came out of that last 5-year review. So it is truly independent, and it is truly something that you as levy payers, I feel, should be very proud of. That for every dollar you've put into MLA, you've got a $6.20 return, but importantly, these are the numbers now for MSA. So the 5-year plan, which I'm going through, is, and there's statistics, but improve consumer satisfaction with eating quality of beef. And I'm going to run you through the data and the evidence used to make that statement. But there's MSA. So MSA and the evolution of MSA is around, it's again an industry-led initiative. So it's not MLA telling industry it should have MSA. Your industry is telling MLA that this is where we want levy funds spent on MSA. Over 100,000 consumers, mostly Australian, have tested over 700,000 beef samples in the development of MSA. The international sensory testing has been done to support the MSA model and can predict global consumers. And that's important, understanding what global consumers want. A lot of export product is graded with MSA, even though the MSA assurance system brand or logo, as it should be, is not displayed on the product. But during 2015, nearly 10,000 consumers were tested across 54,000 samples across grill, roast and slow cook methods. The 5-year, whoops, I've messed up. The 5-year plan, which was meant to be the next slide. So MLA's plan for the next 5 years around a lot of the pillars that were released at the end of the month. But one of the plans is under the MSA index, which has just been released, to increase it by 2 points, with increased adoption of MS grading to predict the eating quality of all eligible Australian cattle, utilisation of MSA science to describe fit for purpose for all MSA cuts, the empowerment of brand owners to drive the success of MSA, lead the development of a global consumer sensory testing protocols and international standards for beef eating quality, language and description. Again, why do we have cattle that are fed for 100 days, the third tooth pops up, and they're not eligible for the EU? You've fed them for 100 days as a feedlotter, you've bred them as producers, the third in size that comes up, and you can't send them to the EU. It's got nothing to do with eating quality. It's a technical trade barrier, but that's another discussion. We can identify on-farm practices that increase eating quality and improve producer compliance of both MSA and company specifications. And there's the numbers around where MSA and how it is used by state and adoption by state. MSA grading in Victoria represents the lowest percentage, actually, of adult cattle slaughter in Australia. We know that 36% of all cattle slaughtered in 2015 were MSA graded. And we, through NLRS, National Livestock Reporting Services, estimate that 60% of all eligible MSA cattle are graded. But the brand owners drive growth and the use of MSA. And then you can see the empowerment of brand owners will allow more premium brands that will capture a premium, allowing more money to flow back to producers. Brands underpin MSA and capture a premium as MSA as a result. So does MS. So technically, should the MSA producer. Now the MSA index, which hopefully you've seen, because MSA's just released the index under its 5-year plan that I walked through. 30-odd thousand people were invited to consult to that process, and we've just finished a rollout across Australia where we had some really good feedback on the 5-year plan. But MSA is only successful when there is full supply chain commitment. And as of a note, you as levy payers support MSA and co-branding of brands through the domestic and global market, but it must be underpinned, those brands must be underpinned by MSA. So this discussion around trademarks and the voluntary use, which I get a lot of emails around, that and a lot of other things. But so MSA 4 and 5 star logos have always been available. The outcomes of MS grading has always been 3 and 4 and 5 star. The challenge for segregation of these better end products has been availability of product. MSA optimisation and the Eating Quality Index will help identify greater volumes of 4 and 5 star product. We simply need more cattle that eat better. Okay, so there's some of the brands that are in the marketplace that don't even use the MSA logo on them. But brands use MSA to segregate by eating quality and to underpin the brand promise. You can't charge a high-end premium without underpinning the brand promise, or you lose consumers to your brand, whether you be a restaurant, a supermarket, or an individual product, as displayed on the screen. The strength of brand enables them to capture that price premium. If MSA is used generically, there is a risk that the price would be so generic, would also be generic, and that it becomes a commodity. The most effective way for industry to get value from the use of MSA trademark is for MSA to support the brand. It's not a brand. The MSA logo is not a brand. It should not be in competition with the brands that you see on the screen, but together, eating quality as well as a range of other provenance attributes will enable our product or your product to gain premiums throughout throughout the domestic and global markets. We work heavily with brand owners to improve eating quality segregation. So the recent rollout of MSA optimisation models allows us to customise eating quality segregation, and this is the next step to better utilising MSA model and securing cattle for higher index values. So what we're trying to do is under the index model is that you get a score per animal, and you know now, hopefully you know now, that on the MSA index that the national average is 57. And then we can take that index as more and more people use it and benchmark you against neighbours, regions, states, or any other information that you so require. But work continues to reduce eating quality variation within brands by reviewing edible cuts, recommended cooking methods, eating quality, grade by cut and by cook, and volume of cuts available by grade based on livestock supply, aging requirements, specific carcass attributes including weight and marbling. Additional provenance attributes, feed type and breed and graphic location can be determined by using the index. If we now go to eating quality segregation, this slide, and I'll walk... okay, so I'll just go to that slide and hopefully get all it up. So if you look at this slide shows how eating quality of an animal based on EQ can change with a shift in the MSA index, showing the potential availability of 3, 4 and 5 star. One of the key indexes, as I mentioned before, around our plan is to move the average from 57 up closer to 60 by 2 points. Currently, 50% of Australian cattle herd are producing of 10% of cuts in a carcass with a satisfactory. So there's of 50% of Australian cattle herd, we're producing only 10% of cuts with a carcass with an unsatisfactory eating quality. 1% or less are producing carcasses that have harvestable amounts of 4 and 5 star products. The big opportunity is to work with the bottom 50% to reduce the amount of unsatisfactory products. There's also the big opportunity to increase the availability of 4 and 5 star cuts. So you can see there how much product is available under the 4 to 5 star cuts. So again, back to the data and evidence, consumer tracking. I quite often get told that quality is an issue in our marketplace. Driving awareness of MSA and marketing MSA does not appear to have a clear correlation. So you can see there the correlation between driving MSA awareness back to beef consistently high quality against right back to 2013. This suggests that MSA's strength is primarily as an eating quality model, not a promotional tool. Consumers have a range of other quality clues when they're making that purchasing decision. Packaging type, retail environment, labelling, and marketing as appropriate. And of course, meat colour and of course, price. But these are all in control of the brand owner. So what this data, again, as I'm telling you, is, and what you'll see on the next slide, is that when we centrally test consumers, we can give you the range of where consistent eating quality standards have improved and where it sits. So the important takeout of this is, whilst we're charging a higher price above our competitors, the combination of stronger perceptions towards eating quality and all other positive attributes for beef that results in almost double the percentage of consumers who are willing to pay more for beef over chicken. 29% for beef as opposed to only 16% for chicken. This willingness to pay more is reflected in the fact that consumers are currently paying over 3 times the price for beef than for chicken. But this can also gain some challenges. So again, we're using this data and evidence to inform how we help brands in our marketplace use MSA effectively by tracking consumer response to a wide range of attributes, and we have done so for over 10 years. We've taken out the emotion of marketing beef in this country and overlaid it with insight, strategy and MSA data. consumer tracking, response to MSA awareness and association with product quality we've been doing for the last 5 years. And then the last slide, consistent high quality product is an important attribute and one we as an industry should strive to improve. However, it is the sum of many parts that drive consumer purchase decision. Brand owners determine what consumer attributes they seek, promote, and accordingly they support and the supporting product specification. MSA science predicts eating quality, so a useful tool in the development of product specifications and ultimately consumer proposition. The last slide I'm going to finish with is where we will be in 5 years' time and what's coming over the horizon. So hopefully you know a lot about genetics and genomics, this discussion around objective carcass measurements and information management. So in the genetics space, we'll have commercial producers will have EVBs based on eating quality or any other trait that you so require. Hair samples at Lairage will link DNA to genomics and saleable meat yield, which I think you've already had to discuss through a process you'll hear a lot more about called single step. Producers have price and product transparency based on cuts and eating quality. So all the discussions around where we're going as an industry with establishing price transparency and product transparency once it goes into that processing facility. So a single sign-on is what we're also aiming for in industry. So you have an MSA sign-on, an LPA, an NLIS sign-on, a single sign-on, and perhaps satellite electronic identification devices from microchips in ears powered by the body heat of the animal, and objective data by cut, by eating quality, by animal, by genomics, by genotype, across 14 million cattle and 30 million prime lambs. And that's the discussion around where mega data is going. But the point that we as an industry must identify is that once we have all this data, is to ensure that we own the data and we can use the data. That's not as complicated as it looks. I know I probably made it sound complicated, but you just take out of that mega data model that we've got to be aware is coming our way and understand how you use it to the benefit of your production system in the future. Thank you.